Welcome to the surface of SuperBikePlanet.
The SuperbikePlanet.com podcast, Soupkast, is brought to you by American Honda.
Hello, this is Dean Adams. Welcome to Soupkast by Honda. This is Soupkast by Honda 172 for August 19th, 2014. At the Indianapolis Motor Speedway several weeks ago, I was bumbling around in the paddock and literally bumped into Jeremy Burgess, former Rossi, former Doohan, etc., etc. He was smiling, strolling about the paddock, looking content and like a man who, if he hadn't had a ton of bricks removed from his shoulders, at least a half a ton of bricks then. Later, Julian and I convinced him to do a podcast off-site. This is that podcast. You lead, Jules.
How's the golf handicap, Jerry?
I haven't put in a card, but I can go around in the low 90s. And if I take the week before score and place it up against the current week's score, on an ideal time, 82.
Not bad. Not bad. So the practice is playing off.
Yeah, twice a week, Monday and Friday I play golf. Love it. I'm absolutely absorbed by it. I didn't think it could grab me like it has.
Did you play before you left this place full time?
No, I played probably, we used to have a hack around in South Africa years ago, and probably once every 3 years you'd pick up the clubs, but I used to bore the shit out of me by about the 12th hole. Yeah. And now I just... and
you had to put up with Briggs going on about it as well.
Well, he picked it up in the last couple of years, and no, it was good. I had friends always playing every Friday, so it's sort of easy to join the group. Yeah. And then it's sort of lunch afterwards on Friday. And
how very civilised. What else are you doing? The cars?
Yeah, restoration cars. Doing that. Re-equipped the workshop. Spent some dough there on extensions and lighting and machinery. Had to offset that with a bit of spending in the house to keep Claudine happy. Things are good. I mean, I think it's easier for someone like in our sport, perhaps, to get from the mechanical perspective to sort of go into this situation, because we have that long period sort of off at the end of the season. So to me, it still feels like an extended off season. I have to be honest, with an interest in what's going on and at the GPs, but certainly, I see the dramas of Assen and the Saxon Ring, and I just went through situations like that when you're gunning for world champion and the wrong call is a disaster, and the last thing you want to do is have a 20-cent decision in $1 million industry. So I sat back and watched that and said, now I just don't want to be there.
Oh, really?
I was ready to go, I think, honestly. Yes. I do feel I'm very comfortable with the whole situation.
You don't seem like a stressed or angst-ridden person at all.
To me, 34 years away. Yeah. People say, the travel. I quite enjoy the travel. That never really stressed me. But, it's a high-pressure job. If you're working at the top end of that field, you don't have much room to move. You got to make the right calls all the time, and you never stop thinking about it. So it's I wouldn't say it's a relief. I really love the technology, and I really love the machinery. But you can't have one without the other. You've got to deal with the human aspect of it and the challenge and what everybody's trying to achieve. But the pressure we had at Honda in the early days when we hadn't won from sort of 89 with Eddie Lawson right through until 94 with Mick, there was an expectation in those days that Honda was meant to win. Yamaha would win one year and Honda would win the next, and that was the status quo. But when it wasn't happening, I still remember back to that period, and there was a lot of pressure. But and likewise, getting back to the talking of the last two races, you think, that we had that pretty much full time in many cases, that sort of pressure.
Yes.
The other blokes can have that. Young boys can have that.
ideally, it's probably not the way you wanted to leave racing so abruptly, and or
Yeah, look, it you never know, and I've always said that don't ever be scared of retirement. From the moment you swing your leg over the seat of a bike, or you start in a job, you know one day you're going to stop, but you're never sure of when or how or what the circumstances will be. It's good. I was always there as long as Valentino wanted me to be there, and I was happy with that arrangement. I wasn't probably going to leave him, but at the same time, I'd known since I was about 50 years old, 10 years ago, that it could end at any time, and I was able, at that point, Valentino had been with us sort of 4 years then, and in 2000 and whenever it was, he was fiddling with Formula One a little bit. So you get the feeling you didn't know. So I certainly put my house in order from that point on, knowing that in probably the last 10 years of your working life, or whatever you can get out of it, you better get some investments going, and from that point of view, I'm very comfortable. As I said to another journo, I didn't, as I was driving back from Valencia to Barcelona at the end of last year, you're going, well, didn't think necessarily that I'd be seeing this stretch of road on my exit from Europe, but then you go, well, what did you expect? There's always going to be a last trip. I'm here in Indianapolis, and I'm thinking, having breakfast over there in the hospitality this morning, I think this could be my last time to Indianapolis, because the group that I'm here with this time, they want to go somewhere different. So they're Canadians, and they're thinking they want to go to Brunei. They ask me, where's the best one to go to? And I go, well, Brunei, but they say, we've done this one since the beginning, let's plan. So, so I thought, but I like Indianapolis, I just enjoy it.
When you had that press conference at Valencia, and you were asked for your toughest rivals, you name-check Wayne Rainey, who you still can't think of as anything other than the enemy. And I think Irv, wasn't it? With reflection, we stick with that?
Look, for sure. I mean, they were the toughest periods. Certainly, Mick against Wayne was enormously tough, and that was during the expectation period and the pressure from Honda that we must win. And he kept hearing this all the time, we must win. It is our, God-given right, so to speak, that we will win. And of course, Mick had the great start in 92, then the injury, then the poor year in 93.
Yes.
Came back and was, sort of redeemed himself. And you can see that Honda have so much admiration for both him and Freddie Spencer by the functions that they get invited to as riders, as compared to perhaps somebody who's only won them one championship, or say a Nicky or a Wayne Gardner. He's very well thought of. Irv, on the other hand, Irv taught me a lot, subliminally in many ways, because Irv wouldn't necessarily tell you what the problem was, but you had to sort of reverse engineer it by what you were trying to do. But Irv had a lot on his plate with the two titles that year in 85. And then, of course, when Irv had Hondas in his own separate team, and I was running the other riders in the works team, it was almost impossible or not allowed that we should come second, even though Honda probably didn't really care, but you had all the Japanese infrastructure and everybody working with it associated with our group, and Irv was as a satellite with a great group of guys, and a great man, a great person himself. I have an enormous respect for Irv. He's a great guy.
Were there any conversations with Valentino after the motorhome incident, or was it any?
The weekend, progressed as normal. There was no.
No, look, I'm sorry, but
No. I fully understand and support the decision. I mean, as I said at the time, I'd read enough sporting biographies to understand what can happen, what happens. I understand the mentality of top sports people. The one thing that gets them to the place where they are is that they never doubt themselves. So when everything changes and nothing changes, the things closer to the bigger things start to get changed. So at the end of the day, the important thing is that it has its desired result. And as I said earlier, I was very much at ease with the decision, although it was a surprise. It didn't sort of rock me as if it's not as if anything had been done wrong. The bike was running fine. The settings were as good as they could be. We had Lorenzo on the other side going gangbusters with the same bike. It's not like I started the job in 2013 and it was deemed to be incapable of doing it. So there was no real reasons. I think Valentino perhaps felt, as he said, that you're not sure you want to go the whole way with me. You'll go year by year. And he felt he wanted somebody who perhaps would go to the end of 2016. And to me, I clearly couldn't see ourselves battling around for that period of time. Valentino was confident that he was as good as Marquez and the guys in front of him, and only the fulfilment of the next few years will determine whether that's the case or not.
The current version of him, he looks younger and he's probably riding better than ever. So the shock value of throwing himself into the cold water seems to have worked.
Yeah, I think he's definitely riding well. He started the season extremely well. He's now, as he said to me, the first 6 races of this year were going to be enormously important to him. That was going to determine whether he wanted to continue. He's had a good year. He's had some average races. We'll see how the next pan out. It was always my feeling that his second year on the Yamaha would be a lot better. We started last year trying to take the bike back to where he had it in 2010 and not use the closer settings to Lorenzo. As we moved across to that sort of later in the season, the qualifying became better, and he wasn't running with that Bautista group and those where he was having problems. So yeah, for sure, I think he expected, I expected, I'm sure everybody would expect that this year would have been better.
And I was just going to say, just thinking back on the things you said over the years, I suppose if you weren't fighting for the world title with your rider, you weren't that bothered about staying. Would that be a...
Well, that's right. I mean, you're here for one reason, and the reason is to win, and that was sort of beaten into us in the Honda days, and Mick Doohan sort of seriously backed that up when I made the mistake of congratulating him for finishing second one time. He just grunted and said, "Yeah, first of the losers," and so you go, to win again is repetitive. I love the challenge, but like I said 10 minutes ago, I don't think I can handle the stress anymore. I just don't. It's just something as you get older. You can have riders who are on bicycles who are fitter and stronger at 31 than they were at 19, but they'll never win a race. The process has got to be working at 100%. And why do sports people, when they swing a golf club, not be able to play with the young blokes? I mean, it's not. It's something happens, and I don't know what it is.
But it does happen.
It must happen,
So Marquez is no surprise then, really.
No, I mean, Marquez is not better than those guys. He just rides the bike in a different way, and the other guys can't ride it that way.
How does that? What is?
Well, he spends a lot of time off the side of the bike, very, very low down, and he seems to be able to move his body forward and backwards when he's on the side of the bike. He's good, And as we get get to the pointy end of this specific machinery in terms of what the MotoGP bike is today, as we did with the 500s, we ended up all being very similar with a V4. What we have now is still an inline 4 Yamaha, and the Yamaha doesn't like to get out of line, and yet the Honda can come into the corner and do this and do that.
Yeah.
Now, you know, when the weight of a bike is different because of the layout of the design, it's inherent that the pivot and the axis and the way it moves will be somewhat different. So, you know, these are things that may give you an advantage in one area, but what we clearly see is the ability of the Honda to do things in the braking area which the other bike can't. And but you know, you talk to a Honda guy and you say perhaps in the fast corners the Yamaha seems much more stable. So, you know, does it mean in the future that we'll all end up perhaps with a V4? With 2 cylinders here and 2 cylinders there. You know, these are the questions. But I'm relaxed about all that's happening. I try not to get too involved. The bikes don't look too different. As the Yamaha was always a bike of evolution rather than revolution.
Yep.
Very happy with what we were able to achieve over the 30-odd years I was there, you know, in MotoGP. I have no regrets. You know.
I like that. I think I can. I've got to go and pretend I'm working.
Right. Okay. No, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, mate.
Two more questions?
Yeah. No, it's Dean. I've got till 10 o'clock.
See you later,
Stay healthy. Get my number off him so you can.
And I will. A couple of them. I wanted to ask you.
And I'll just fire off an email or a text or something at some stage.
You mentioned Ducati.
Yeah. Interesting exercise. I think in a way Valentino was probably more trying to escape from Yamaha at the time because Lorenzo was sort of getting a little more attention perhaps than Valentino would have liked, and as was documented at the time, I think Lorenzo got a pay rise and Valentino had to get his exorbitant salary trimmed. So I think, you know, I don't think it's anything he really wanted to do, but he was going to be number one in Ducati and clearly number one.
The bike, the exercise, the time there?
Well, you know, the Ducati is a bike that hasn't... When you see a lot of the componentry on it, you can see the difference to what the Japanese do. The Japanese will look at a part, and even though it's working and functioning properly, they will try and develop that part. I think because of the size of Ducati in general, some of the stuff in the engine could have been a lot smaller, a lot better, but because it worked, it didn't get developed, you know. And they're great people, wonderful people, a wonderful experience, but lousy results, you know.
We ran some photos on the site after the first Sepang test this year with the body panels off Ducati, and it was really shocking to look at the bike, you know, in depth and see, especially compare it to a Japanese bike. It just seemed, you know, at points, you know, just componentry and things like that weren't very well thought out, and wiring looms smashed back on themselves, and clearly these things can be made infinitely more tidy and easier for the mechanic to work on, and but it just seemed like there was, I don't know, it scared me because that's the kind of work I do in my garage, and to see that in MotoGP was a bit frightening.
Yeah, it was a difficult bike to work on from the mechanic's point of view, but we got it better and better and better. You know, when I think we went there initially and you had about 9 tools to take the rear brake caliper off because each engineer had designed a posi drive for this and a 7mm for that and an 8mm for this. And so everything on the Japanese bike is sort of 8, 10 and 12 and 14 perhaps for the shock mounts. So that was something I think we could help them with, but you know, they just felt performance was the important thing. They didn't understand that the more you can work on the bike during the practices and the extra run you can get, or the more you can actually achieve, the quicker you move up. And these are refinements, I think, that come from more time in racing, as long as you have direction that understands that, and clearly a focus to improve rather than to maintain just outright performance, I think, can help.
Nicky said that he thought that Valentino and Preziosi really just knocked heads on several levels, including that Rossi would want the power more manageable, and Preziosi could not understand why he just didn't want a giant bucket of horsepower all the time.
Yeah, well, the heart of any motorcycle is the engine. You want a power delivery, but when you have an engine that makes enormous power for the last 20 metres of the straight, or enormous speed for the last 20 minutes of the straight, it's not what you want. And if you look back to sort of 1983, Kenny versus Freddie, we knew the Yamaha made more horsepower, but Freddie had a bike that would get him off every corner a little bit easier than that. So that's the majority of the racetrack. The straight comes around once. And as we see, the last 20 metres might be all right the first time down, but when you've lost 20 metres in the next section of the track, it's not much good to you. So, the focus on absolute power, as Honda did in the late 80s, rather than rideability, makes it very difficult for the rider. And this belief that we can build this massive amount of power and then control it with electronics is nonsense, because the electronic guys are a completely different mentality to the mechanical engineering guys. They punch in numbers and do this, and they'll do it all day, but nothing will happen. They say we can't change that, but they don't believe us.
A guy who worked for you, who shall remain nameless, the second Ducati year with Rossi, said the turning point in the season was the second Sepang test. For some reason, when it really seemed to be solidified in Valentino's mind that this thing is not going to get any better, and he noticed that Valentino was walking slower to the bike every single time he had to go ride it, and right then he thought, this season is lost.
Well, yeah, I thought, from my perspective, you never think it's lost. You think you can do something, but for sure. I mean, Valentino was probably by that stage clear that the speed of development or the change in the bike was so small that in the remaining in the next 18 races it wasn't going to accelerate in any way capable of allowing him to win the championship. So at the end of 2011, there was talk of chassis and what have you, and there was versions brought to the testing there, and I suppose from that point of view there was an improvement perhaps at the first test, but you can never read anything into a first test. The second test is really the confirmation, and if that's I wouldn't disagree strongly with that. I can't remember it specifically, but when the other guys are going around very fast and you're not there with them, and Valentino, and always in the old days we'd be looking for a tenth of a second. When you see that these days and they're 0.5 and 0.6 behind Marquez, I mean that's amazing. We've never seen that in the history of the sport, in a way. I mean, if we were 0.3 off on the front row at third, and that was miles away, and that goes back into the days of the two strokes. So you just that unless the world's changed a bit and things are different by a long way, if you can't do it in the practice, you're unlikely to be able to do it in the race. Because if you look to history, the race was always won by somebody out of the first three. You know, it was a rare day when four came through. Yeah. So
it's a mystery that the thing has never worked since Stoner was there. I just works in the wet, and
but it's below the full power in the wet. You see what I mean? That full power comes in at the top, and it just bang, and it goes like a light switch. And that's why I think, as long as they continue to muck around with everything but the engine, they'll never get it right. And then once they've got the engine right, they've got to go back to the refinements that the Japanese have. And we've added weight to the bikes just because of the Ducati situation over the years. So, I mean, it's they build lovely street bikes, Ducati, and they're lovely people. And they just need more experience. And it can be done, but you know, when you've got perhaps 150 or so doing it in Yamaha, and God knows how many in Honda in the old days, you can put one supervising engineer on the secondary gear with a couple of cadets and tell them to come up with a few ideas, and we'll run them on a machine to see if it breaks. You know, but maybe you just don't have that option as a company like that.
Final question, just the mechanics of it. How'd you get your tools home and the rest of your stuff, or didn't you? I was just curious. What happened? How was he going to get that stuff home?
Well, I don't have any tools. I haven't had tools since 1986, I think. And then the boys got sick of carrying my toolbox around the truck, so we sent it to Phillip Island with the freight one year, and I took it home. I travelled light, other than a few folders and what have you. You know, I'm usually pretty empty of everything in Europe at the end of the year.
Good.
Yeah, so it wasn't that much. Didn't leave anything behind that I can think of.
Tough to leave the boys that you'd worked with.
Yeah, great. You know, that's part of it. I mean, all the people, the press, the journalists, all people have become friends over the years. But to come back here like this weekend has been is great. You know, it's just good to say hello to everybody and not sort of be stepping on anybody's toes.
Soupkast is brought to you by American Honda.